What's up? We got Arrow Season 5, Episode 3, Matter of Trust. So this episode starts off with Oliver just running and being a bad guy. And even we have the team commenting on how, he's defeating the bad guy. And Evelyn's like, it's rather him punching us, and Rory has to say, he punches you? He punches you guys? And yeah, so Oliver is looking for the Stardust, which reminds me of that JoJo song, Stand Proud. Or the Stardust Crusaders arc, which we'll get to when we're done. We'll get to that season. We'll get to it. I started reading JoJo. If you haven't seen the first episode for season 1, part 1, episode 1, please, Dale the Invader, please check it out. Because I would love if you check out that video. So, yeah, so he's like, where's Stardust? And he's like, what's Stardust? And he's like, Stardust is the new drug that they're making. Oh, you're trying to make Vertigo, but and he's like, instead of it being, you're trying to make Vertigo, but instead of Vertigo, it's called Stardust. And they're like, it's run by Derek Sampson, who I think is a WWE wrestler. Please tell me if I'm wrong or not. Because they just love getting, they like say, hey, wrestlers, we know you're very popular. WWE wrestlers or UFC boxers, we know you're very popular. But will you please appear on television show as a villain? Like, even on Smallville, they got WWE or UFC people to portray villains and characters. So yeah. So John's in jail for, the whole, his committing off the thing gone south, and he basically tells Lila to tell John Jr. He says hi. Remember, he has a son now instead of a daughter, which he doesn't. His baby John instead of baby Sarah, because of Barry's whole time flashpoint thing. It's dumb. So yeah, so there's also a thing of Thea, Oliver finds out from Oliver. Thea's watching a news thing of Susan Williams, and she's obviously the worst, but she's basically commenting on Oliver hired Quentin. But then when Oliver reads this, he's like, Thea. Sorry for saying Felicity. He's like, Thea, you hired Quentin, even though I told you not to hire him. Please rectify this. So she's like, sure. So she goes to Susan and she's like, hey, her brother had no idea about it. Will you please change the story? So she basically tells her that. And what does she do? She basically outs it and basically says that Oliver had no idea. So she basically goes behind Thea's back and changes the story instead of blaming it. She still blames it on Oliver, saying, oh, it's Oliver's fault. But he had no idea Quentin was hired. But in the end, Oliver does hire Quentin as deputy mayor, and Thea's like, hey, Thea basically tells Susan, she's like, hey, Susan, this is for a later scene, but we're going to explain now because this is basically Thea's role in the entire episode. She's like, hey, Susan, I know you changed that story, if you do that ever again, I'll make sure you have nothing, and I'll make sure you have nothing but just a blog. Nothing but just a blog. Nothing or a blog. Or nothing but just a blog. So, yeah, basically tell him, even Felicity says how much she doesn't like Susan Williams. And I agree. So anyway, yeah, so then we see Renee and Evelyn and they're on Derek Sampson's case, and they're like, hey, where, I'm gonna tilt this down. How do I tilt this? So like, hey, where So like, where is Derek Sampson? And yeah, but Renee accidentally knocks Sampson into a vat of chemicals, i.e., like the Batman to the Joker in Batman 89. And then that's where we meet another new character, Adrian Chase. If you know anything about Adrian Chase, he's Vigilante, who we haven't all seen in the show, but we know from Peacemaker that he's the friend of John Cena's Peacemaker, who is Vigilante. But for this character, we have no idea if he's Vigilante or anyone else. Who knows? But anyway, yeah, so he's like, hey, Oliver. He's like, hey, Oliver, we're about to nail Derek Sampson until a vigilante shows up. And he's like, Green Arrow would never kill him. And he's like, not him. Until we were about to nail Derek Sampson until a vigilante killed him. He's like, Green Arrow doesn't kill him. He's like, it wasn't Green Arrow. It was someone in a hockey mask. So Oliver's like, hockey mask. It basically goes Naruto running to speed running, or basically JoJo punching the door open to fight Dio, confronting Renee about basically running and saying Renee, and like JoJo did Dio in episode 1. More JoJo references are coming. Yeah. And he's like, Renee. And he's like, Renee, you went after Sampson alone. And he's like, how do you know that? Because the DA were going to prosecute Sampson and bust him until you had to jump in and kill him. And he's like, you told me that you wanted me to trust you. And he's like, well, I don't trust you. So yeah. So then there's this whole thing of, there's this whole Rory, like, Curtis is like, hey, Rory, you're not from this. Hey, Rory. Rory says about how he's not gay, and then she's like, and he's like, hey, where are you from? You're not from. So he's like, Haven Rock, and I'm like, come on, Curtis. So they're basically doing this thing where they're basically like, yeah, so I'll talk about it now. Curtis is like, Felicity's like, so I'm gonna say it. Felicity tells Curtis that it was her fault why Haven Rock was destroyed, but he's like, no, it's not. It was Damien Dark's. But no, it was Felicity's fault because Damien Dark may have shot the missile that almost blew up Monument Point, but Felicity was the one that rectified that by and Curtis has to say, oh, you saved millions by doing that, and she was like, tell that to Rory's family. Oh, show, you're trying to make us feel bad that Felicity killed a bunch of people. You're trying to tell us that it wasn't Felicity's fault, that Felicity killed a bunch of people when it was her fault that she killed a bunch of people. Stop trying to tell us that, because we don't buy it. Felicity killed a bunch of people. Stop trying to tell us that she did save millions of people, because because that actually happened. So yeah, so later she tells Rory that she was the one that destroyed his. Yeah. Oh yeah, but actually I'll explain that later. So Derek Sampson survives, and Oliver goes to fight him. He's like, Derek Sampson, you have failed this city. But then the arrow, he hits Derek Sampson, but Derek Sampson just, instead of going right into him, it goes through him. Because Derek Sampson just walks right through the arrow, still in the wall, and tries to fight him. But yeah, so they're like, oh yeah, Derek Sampson's not dead, but Derek Sampson goes to his gang and is like, hey, and shows them his favorite scene is Lethal Weapon, and starts to burn himself, and he's like, and basically he's like, we'll save this city from Tobias, we'll stop Tobias Church, and they're like, yeah, we'll stop Tobias Church. So yeah. So Curtis finally gets a code name. He shows up as Mr. Terrific, his favorite boxer or something. And yeah. So he he takes his big hair and like put gel on it, makes a T-shaped like mask or face paint, and puts on and yeah, so they attack all of Samson's guys and they totally stop Derek Samson. So now with Oliver trusting his team, he decides to say, hey guys, it's finally time to degrade from the training center you've been training in to finally showing you the new rebuilt Arrow Cave. So that looks exactly the same from the last one that they had that was destroyed by Hive. So they look at all the suits on the mannequins and they're like, maybe they'll get a suit on a mannequin. So let's talk about the John stuff because I forgot to mention the John stuff. So John, remember he's in prison and he sees Deadshot for some reason, and Deadshot's like, he has to tell it's not really Deadshot, it's just Deadshot's ghost just haunting Diggle to make him clear. It's just basically his guilty conscience of killing Andy, and then later when Lila's sorry, but I'm only kicking my tripod when I move on my feet. But he's like, it's like, hey, it's not him. He's not there. He's like, Deadshot. And he's like, Deadshot's dead. And he's like, stop fighting for him, Lila. He already stopped. So then Lila approaches Oliver and is like, hey, John's in prison and he needs our help to end the episode. So that was, I keep kicking the tripod, I'm sorry. This episode was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. I kind of felt like the whole episode they're like, oh, Felicity, you may have killed like 500 people or 5,000 people, but you did to save millions, so it makes it a good thing, which it doesn't. And I kind of Susan Williams is the worst. I'm kind of glad that Quentin got that deputy mayor job at the end. But anyway, that was it for this episode, and I'll see you next time for some more Arrow Season 5.